Regression is a story of a detective played by Ethan Hawke who's investigating something that took place with Emma Watson. She claims to have been abused physically by a cult that has arisen in this small town. And it's the story of how Ethan Hawke investigates this mystery, as well as the strange line that sometimes gets blurred between fiction and truth. Now, I was excited for this movie because the director of this film made the very good The Others. This is a really good scary thriller. Plus, I love Ethan Hawke. I think he's a very understated actor, and I've always loved seeing him in roles, and I'm always curious to see what Emma Watson can do outside of the Harry Potter universe. What I really liked about Regression is it's very old-fashioned. Some might say to a fault. The style in which this film is directed is very old school, and I think that's awesome. This doesn't feel current at all. It doesn't feel like 2016. It feels like a movie that could have come out 10 or 20 years ago, and that's something that I really appreciated because it did feel very restrained. It didn't feel too flashy, and sometimes I want a film like this to be a little more in your face and exciting, but a suspense film like this that really at its core is actually more of a mystery, I think really benefited from that approach. And I also loved Ethan Hawke in this movie. He plays a very tortured character, and one that is dealing with a lot of paranoia, because that's a major theme of this film. How someone can explain a story, and someone else hears said story, and repeats said story, and it goes on to the point where shock and terror and paranoia is just taking over this little town. And it's loosely based on true events of the early 90s, and when I was growing up, I do remember hearing just slight whispers of certain things like this. And so it's definitely touching on something that is true. The way a story can be perpetuated from one person to another until it builds into this thing that just terrifies everybody. Emma Watson in this movie, I thought she was fine. She wasn't amazing, she wasn't great, she served her character's purpose. And once you see the film and you see where everything goes with every character, certain things that maybe at first didn't quite make sense start to make sense as you watch more of the movie. Now here's where I guess my opinion gets kind of controversial for some reason, because when I went to Rotten Tomatoes and saw the reviews for this movie, I was floored how many critics are truly hating on this movie. It has such a low percentage, and way lower than some of the other horror films that have already come out in January that are far worse and don't even come close to being as well directed as this movie was. So I don't understand why I have this rift going on right now, because usually I tend to be a little bit more on the side of the critics and stuff, but I'm not feeling it. I can't really explain this rift I'm having right now with Rotten Tomatoes in this movie, but I found it a lot better than critics are saying. I think it is a fairly well directed and very well acted movie. It does have problems though, and those problems are its ending. I won't spoil it, but it's the type of ending that makes you kind of feel as if the film was kind of bleh. It's sort of disappointing in the way that the film slightly deflates. It's almost like the film was harnessing that human emotion that we get when paranoia or fear builds, and it just worked for me. It makes the film a little less impactful, and overall, the film as a whole, I can see how it might bore some because it is old-fashioned. I appreciated that though, and I like the performances, but some will be bored by this movie, and some will hate the ending. And that's why I'm gonna give Regression a B. It's a film that has narrative problems. The ending doesn't entirely work, but I appreciated the ride this movie had me on for the majority of it. I'm curious to know what you guys think of this movie if you had a chance to see it. It's in a very limited release right now. It's only playing in 1 or 2 theaters in my area. I really hope you guys get a chance to see it, and I want to know what other people think of this movie too, and if it's just me, or if I'm just like the one guy who's like, it's okay, it's not that bad actually. Thank you so much guys for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmannized.